lived in the United States, Tennessee, Illinois, other states who were moving around at this time. They were trying to find the right place to settle. And when they heard about a land grant that gave them 640 acres, we had lots of people who were interested in coming. And so there were some people in Tennessee, a man named Isaac Webb, and he decided that he had heard about Texas and thought he'd just come over and see how it was. Well, he had a brother-in-law who was named Cochran. The two sisters were sisters. Nancy Jane Cochran and Mary Webb were sisters. Well, they all four wanted to go, but they said, let's send Isaac over and just see how the land is. So Isaac Webb came over to this area, and he looked around, picked up some dirt, put it in his saddlebags, and went back to Tennessee and said, this is the place we want to be. So Cochran said, I'm coming with you. What happened is Cochran came on ahead of Isaac Webb because Mrs. Webb, they say in the history books, got sick on the way and couldn't travel. I think she had another baby because they had lots of babies. And when he came here, he stayed in the Cochran Chapel, in the Cochran's home, And that is when he started trying to gather people together to learn the Lord's business. And he and Nancy Jane Cochran and his wife were the only members of the Methodist Church who were here at that time. But he left us something that I think is valuable to this whole part of the country. He left a diary. And his diary is in Fondren Library at SMU. And much of the history we know of what happened in 1844 is attributed to Isaac Webb's diary. I want to read some of it to you. Webb Chapel, of course, is named for Isaac Webb, but I have parts of his diary here that I'd like to share with you. Isaac Blackman Webb was born in Tennessee in 1802, June the 4th, 1802. Isaac B. Webb and Mary Hughes were married April the 8th, 1835, and he was 33 when he married. They moved to Marshall City, Tennessee, and in 1838. They arrived at William Cochran's home in Texas on January the 27th, 1844. And Isaac Webb, was 42 years old when he came to Texas. Mr. Webb's chief influence on pioneer life was in the field of religion. However, he was active in every phase of community life. His home was a stopping place for newcomers and people who stayed to work in the community. He was interested in good schools and promoted early educational improvements. Isaac B. Webb has been called by Macomb Phelan the mud seal of Methodism in Texas, in Dallas County. Here are some of the words from his. My wife came, made 3 members of the Methodist Church. We 3 were the only ones that were present in the neighborhood. All of the rest of the men were Sunday hunters, and when they would go hunting, I would call their families together and read and sing and pray and instruct them the best I could. I was determined to stick to my beloved Methodism. I learned from travelers that J.W.S. McKinney was living near Clarksville teaching school. He and I were old friends in Tennessee. I wrote to him where I was and requested him to send us a preacher. Sure enough, a few weeks, Tom Brown, a preacher, rode up to the settlement with his gun lighting before him, inquiring for Webb. When he told me who he was and what his business was, to be sure it was good news of glad tidings to me. He stayed all night. The first sermon in the colony was in 1844, was in the Cochrane's cabin. Webb's diary again notes, in the spring of 1845, there were several new settlements made. Sam Shook was sent as a missionary to us. He preached and formed a circuit. He preached at my cabin his first sermon, May the 5th, 1845, and organized a society consisting of 5 members, I.B. Webb, Mary Webb, M.F. Fortner, Margaret Fortner, and Nancy Jane Cochrane, and authorized me to lead the class. I worked on and done the best I could. May 11th, Isaac Webb wrote to Brother McFerrin, he wrote a letter asking for help, and it was published in the Southwestern Christian Advocate in Nashville. And this is what Webb says about us, this country. I have found the country so far to be healthy in general. Persons, when first settling here, sometimes have chills and fevers, but this is generally light, and afterwards they are healthy. We have a class formed here consisting of 8 or 10 members and have circuit preaching every 4 weeks. There are 5 appointments within the compass of 15 miles. Methodism, with its characteristic zeal and perseverance, is pioneering this far west with great success. Let Methodism be stopped, and what will be the situation of the frontier settlers? Literally without a preached gospel for years to come. And oh, what indescribable anguish it gives us to witness the dark and portentous cloud that hangs over our beloved Zion. We can but give ourselves to prayer that the God of Israel may direct her destinies. We lift our voices in the Macedonian cry to the local preachers of the states. Come over and help us. You remember that those were one of Paul's letters that is to Macedonia, the Macedonian cry, come over and help us. And Isaac Webb felt that we needed help over here in Texas to get the Methodist Church started. At this time, Texas was a republic with a president, Anson Jones. Texas became the 28th state in 1845. The same year that our church was founded. And we had a little white church that was beautiful. I loved it and was married there. But our city started to grow. And so in 1955 we decided we need a larger church, and maybe one even with air conditioning. I will say that I remember when we had that little wooden church. The First Baptist Church of Farmers Branch is next door. And we shared an outdoor John. And occasionally you would go to the John and meet one of your Baptist friends over there. So we were good friends with our First Baptist Church in Farmers Branch. But in 1955, when we decided we needed a new church, we built the church we are presently in. But we did not have a contractor. The men of the church and the pastor, when they had a little time, would come by, and we built that church ourselves. That's why it's kind of plain, but we think it's beautiful, and we would love for you to come by and visit us and look in our historic room. We have some furniture that was in the old church. We have a pulpit that was in the old church, and sometimes I will even go and show people some of the things that are in our historical room. Thank you very much.